Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us today at the RAG podcast. This is Isaiah Diesel, and I am joined today with J-Pod or iPod. How do I say that? Podkowski.
J-Pod.
I'm going to eliminate that down to possibly two countries, either German or Polish.
No. Russian.
Or Japanese.
Yeah.
Japanese. Yeah. So, well, where are you calling out of?
Calling out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, about 20 miles outside of it. So
where is it? Like, where's your name from?
Where's my name from?
Yeah.
It's Russian.
Oh,
obviously.
Okay. Wow, I was way off.
Yeah, and I found in Russia a river called Podolsk. So I figured that's probably where we came from.
Yeah.
At some point.
All right, and thank you so much, for joining us. And then I know I can't remember which one I said first, but Mazan or Mazan, Steve?
Mazan.
And is that English or
Dutch? No, it's actually you guessed it right on him. I'm Polish.
Polish.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sure it was Mazanski, right. At some point. Yeah.
Mazanski.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the top 3 Polish inventions ever?
I know. I'm trying to think of the best Polish jokes. No, I can't. I don't know the invention one.
There's 3 actually that I heard were really good. The first one was the double-sided thumbtack. I don't know about that one. There was the inflatable dartboard, and then there was the submarine. What was it? The submarine
with the screen door.
Yeah.
That one I heard because
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me again today, Steve. I was telling you today because Steve's actually like a professional comedian. And I said, we could do another 2 or 3 minutes last time. I said, but do not tell that same joke because you can literally see my face get completely flushed red. I was laughing so hard, I literally almost passed out. But comedy is actually, I can't remember if I told you this the first time, but I went through some serious stages of depression, and comedy, literally in those stages, I would literally just go over to YouTube and just start watching comedy videos because the laughter and the spirit really helped me out through some really bad times. So I think it's great what you do.
It's good to hear. I know laughter. Yeah, it's. I don't know about it's the best medicine, but it definitely is medicine.
I would take did get the vaccine, so I would take that as opposed to just laughing, watching.
Maybe
Chris
penicillin, then laughter's on the list. But right. Surgery and all those kind of stuff.
As said by a proper comedian. But can you tell us real quick how long, for those who didn't see the first video, if you could just give us like a 2 or 3 minute recap of your career or life.
I was born in a log cabin in Illinois.
You said that joke the first time. Come on.
Did I say the same thing?
Yeah, same exact.
Go back to the same jokes. Hey, I want to apologize, by the way, people who've been watching the video portion of this. It's raining in LA today, in Los Angeles. That's where I live, and we don't get a lot of rain here, so everyone was very happy about it. So when you hit record, it was dark and dingy, and I was nicely lit, and now the sun has come out strangely, and so that's what you're seeing. At some point, I'll bring a shade down when the focus is. Yeah, I'm a comedian. I did grow up in Illinois. Served in the Navy aboard a submarine. We did not have a screen door. And then afterwards moved to San Francisco and started stand-up comedy there. It's a great comedy town. That's where like Robin Williams, Jake Johansson, Dana Carvey, Rob Schneider, all those guys started. So started there, and within 3 years was doing it full time, and now I'm going on, I think, full time. 17 or 18 years of stand-up comedy. I've been lucky to be on a bunch of television shows. David Letterman Show was the biggest probably, and then I wrote for Ellen DeGeneres, her daytime show, for a season as well, and won an Emmy while I was writing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So wow, so much to say there. Actually, speaking of Robin Williams, he did that Patch Adams movie, which is actually based on a real person. And though the real person did not at all like the movie or the people who made the movie, I was doing some research because I was looking into that movie.
Yeah.
Because actually, just to give you proper context, we actually interviewed a Michael Jackson impersonator / wrestler. So he actually does like the moonwalk, and he gets up on the ropes, and he does the bad like walk, and I mean, he does some brilliant stuff. He incorporates all of Michael Jackson's moves into there, but he also does hospital visits as Michael Jackson. So we were talking about how it helps build the spirits of the kids there. So that's pretty awesome.
Not bad.
Okay, so that being said, I want to hit you guys both with a quick lightning flash round. And you guys ready?
I'm going to yes, as you start, I'm going to pull my shades up just so I don't look like I've got some Patch Adams disease here in the video.
Right. Okay, here we go. What is, or who is the worst male boy band of all time besides BTS?
Because I was that kid that liked boy bands back in the day.
Oh, nice.
So may I go first?
Please.
Honored. I think if you look it up, there's a boy band called Five. And if you don't remember them, that's the point.
Okay, there you go. What about you, Mazan?
I for whatever reason, I hated New on the Block, so I'm just going to throw them. I know they've got some hits, and I don't mind Donnie Wahlberg in a movie now, but I just couldn't stand them for some reason.
Actually, out of principle, I have to agree with you, because if it wasn't for them, the Backstreet Boys never would have existed. So I would say probably the Backstreet Boys, but again, the Backstreet Boys, that was like the initial disease that caused the pandemic. And right now, BTS is the biggest one in the world. So they're from here, South Korea. Okay, here we go. What is your favorite family sitcom of all time? Steve, you're up on the docket.
Ooh, this is a tough one. I remember liking Family Ties a lot.
Family Ties
was really good. But I got to tell you, like, it's probably like, I do a podcast on movies, and the word we come up with a lot is rewatchable. Like, and you know what's pretty rewatchable? It's terrible, but it's rewatchable as The Brady Bunch. Like, it's one of those, like, it's so bad. If it comes on, it's hard not to watch it. And I know it's like a car wreck, but yeah, so I wouldn't. I guess it's not my favorite, but it might be for that reason of how much you can go back to it, you know, and that we still talk about it today when it was terrible. Right. Like there must have been something extra to it.
My sister, who is like a big politician in California, and she's a lawyer, that was her favorite Family Ties, and I literally remember her crying as a kid whenever she found out it was being canceled. So that was oh my God. Yeah, that big.
A good fan.
J-Pod?
There's a couple, but I would say the one that for me consistently wins out is Fresh Prince.
Fresh Prince, there you go.
Yeah.
Talk about watchability. I mean,
exactly.
All right, and here we go.
Great.
Top 3 greatest movies of all time. But I know you're going to know this one, Steve. So
wow.
Yeah. It's hard to put an order to it, right? That's the hard thing.
I know one on the top of my head, but just doing 3 without genres is
it's tough.
You know, but I would say as much as I've watched it, and as far as how popular it was, and as many solid actors were in it, I would say right off the top is Goodfellas.
Goodfellas.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's hard to argue against that. It's so good.
Why don't you go, and then I'll think of another one.
I'll give you 3, and again, I think this is hard. Listen, I do a podcast on movies, and it's hard to throw out and then still like what you leave out is unfair. So I'll just give you 3 from different eras that time were probably my favorite movies. The Godfather, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then from the past, I think it's in the past decade, maybe 12 years. What's the shoot? I forgot the name of the movie. That's not a good sign.
Just tell me what the plot. I will know what it is. I am a movie buff.
It's gonna come to me. It begins with a W. It's about a drummer, a kid drummer, and he's being trained.
Whiplash.
Whiplash. I think Whiplash is one of the greatest movies of the past 20 years.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, you know, it's funny. I saw the previews to that, and just from the previews alone, I knew that was going to be the best movie I had seen in the last decade, which is not really saying a lot because movies have gone down so bad. But I instantly saw that movie and I said, this is the best movie I have seen in the last 10 years. I was accurate, just based solely from the preview. It is incredibly good. So I will say this, I have like my all-time favorite is Casablanca. Like that to me is an untouchable. And I know it's kind of cliche, but it's like Casablanca's up here and everything else is down here. It's like Nirvana is up here, everything else is down here. And
can I add to that, because you just said a movie that I was thinking about, The Untouchables.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great. So
and again, I kind of think that genre of like mafia fighting, that's kind of like my thing. So I might be biased towards that. And I will be honest with you guys, I have not seen Whiplash.
So, I'm excited for you.
It's very good.
I have to do it. So.
I'm excited for you. Yeah,
thank you. That's so funny that you said within the last 10 years, because what I said before that was this is the best movie I've seen 10 years before that. Literally, that's literally what I told my cousin after seeing it. But again, that's not really much of a bragging right, because I mean, if there's like the 60s or 70s where there's actually some really good stuff coming out, then you know that might be a totally different thing to brag about. But anyway, that being said, I do want to ask you the first question on here. But why do a podcast about film? Like, what's the purpose of that?
Yeah, so I love movies. I think even just here, it's obvious everyone loves movies, right? It's one of those things like, do you like music? Well, of course, who doesn't? You know what I mean? It's fun. But I find myself, let's say I didn't have a podcast. In general, I probably spend half my conversations talking with people. They end up steering towards movies at some point. You know what I mean? And even if we're not talking about movies, we'll be talking about something, and then one of us will be like, oh, that reminds me of that scene, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Or someone will just say a line from it, like, you know what I mean? Like, I was reading an article today, and they were quoting The Untouchables. Like Jay, I was saying, like, about the, the Chicago way is, they put one of yours in the hospital, you put one of theirs in the morgue, you know what I mean? Like this kind of thing, these things that take over our life, that they're not just things we watch and forget about them. They ingrain themselves. That became my whole process, was to watch a movie. My mom is part of a book club. So I was like, well, how about instead of a book club, I hate reading. Well, how about we do a movie club? And so each week, and then we talk about it, and people who are the listeners also send me their views on the movie, and I include those in the podcast. And so, that's why I think it's,
You actually recently did one of my favorite movies, top 10 of all time. I would probably put it about number 9, which is In Bruges. Yeah, I love that movie so much. Whenever I saw that, I'm like, I got to go see In Bruges. So I actually went to, first I went into the Netherlands, but then I went to the Netherlands for like a month, and then I went around travel. This is after I got divorced from my wife. We wound up reuniting later on, but I went into there and I had to go down to Belgium because I had to see that place. And oh my God, it's just as beautiful as the movie. But I do have a cool story that I am going to get to, about that, but it's going to come up later on in here. And so this actually just leads to my next question, because you mentioned it, but why do so many flock to see film? And I do want to give you my take real quick, because in interviewing the Michael Jackson impersonator, Michael Jackson said in his This Is It movie that he said that that his music, he felt it was like escapism for people. And so do you think it's some kind of like escapism, or just like a fantasy? What do they call like a fantasy? Like, you know, the word where you get to like experience something, maybe like vicariously or fantasy.
Yeah, vicariously, it's your way of living it. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that? Can you just...
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's fascinating is that, you know, again, we've done over 250 films now for my movie club podcast, and you know, you run through ones like Austin Powers. The original Austin Powers is one of my favorites of all time. You run like that, where that's just, you watch it and it's fun and it makes you laugh, and you can go back to it 100 times and still laugh at it. But then you get movies like Goodfellas or Godfather or, you know, Casablanca that say something much deeper is happening in them. You know what I mean? They say something about life, and it approaches art. Obviously, it is art, but and I think that's what's so great about it. And movies have a much greater experience. Like, you pick up a book, and there's an experience to a book too. I love, you know, you go to your corner and that's where you read, or on a plane I like to read, or stuff like that. But a movie, it's an experience, right? Like, if you have a favorite movie, you probably remember where you were when you saw it the first time. You remember the theater you were, you remember the people you were with. And it's like you know, you remember sitting back in the seat, and you remember the light going past you from the projector and the dust, and when you look up, and like all that kind of stuff. It's an experience on many levels. And I think that's what's so great about movies, is it can be 50 things all at once, that it isn't just one thing. You know?
Jake Pod, you got a question?
Well, I was actually gonna add my third movie. So you both said movies that I haven't watched.
Wow.
Oh, you haven't seen In Bruges either?
I've never heard that. Yeah, I've never.
I'm so excited. I'm excited for both of these. Are great movies that people haven't seen, and when they see them, especially In Bruges, because it falls into your mob crime genre.
Yeah, it does. It does.
I predict you come back and say that's one of your top 10 movies of all time.
Yeah.
Once
Wow, I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
It doesn't really play out like that most of the time, because it is more of a philosophical, and it is dark comedy.
It's great.
So it's like,
it's great. You're gonna love it.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
What's your number 3?
Yeah, this leads right into the next thing. So yeah, go ahead.
My number 3. Have you ever heard of The Petrified Forest?
I have heard of it, but I've never seen it.
Betty Davis and Humphrey Bogart.
Bogart. Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Got to see that.
That's I think it's 1940s.
Okay.
Bogey.
Yeah.
So,
Bogey. That's
excellent.
Casablanca.
Excellent.
I'm gonna. You know how I know that movie? This is crazy. It's like knowing opera from watching Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
They reference the Petrified Forest in a Woody Woodpecker cartoon.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll have to watch it.
Yeah, it's like, you know, kind of set back, and I think it's Arizona. I'm almost positive. And without ruining it, there's like mobsters that come, and Humphrey Bogart is a part of it. And obviously he's got that nostalgic voice that it goes through like the cartoons that we grew up with. And it's like, where did that come from? Well, that's where it came from. So excellent.
All right. Yeah. I'll find it.
Can a film be used as a tool for change? And I do want to reference that movie, In Bruges. So first of all, here's a great story about that, because I saw that movie in a theater in South Korea. Now, just because of nature of Western humor, and especially dark humor, the South Koreans just did not get that movie. So I was literally the only one laughing in that movie, and I was laughing like a madman. And normally your sounds are muffled by everyone else's, but I was in there laughing like, and it was a small theater, and people were like, what the heck is wrong with this guy? Because that's like not even funny, you know. Nobody got any of the jokes, so it was quite funny. But that being said, there was a scene in there. This is not a spoiler, but Colin Farrell, there's like a midget or a small person. I'm sorry. There's a smaller person. I think that's a PC, a small person, and the smaller person is kissing a girl, and Colin Farrell comes over to him and he touches him like that in the face, and then he starts talking to him, and then later on, they're using some drugs, and Colin Farrell like hits the guy with the karate chop. Well, in South Korea, they just edited that right out of the film.
Oh, wow.
Because if it has to do with drugs or like extreme violence, or if you're watching TV, someone's smoking, they'll blur out the smoke, or if someone gets shot or whatever and their guts are hanging out, they'll like blur that out. So South Korea does a lot of editing.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Censorship. Yeah. So when I saw that movie, later on he comes and he apologizes for karate chopping him, and I was like, why would he call that a karate chop, you know?
Yeah.
And so like that does not make any sense. And then I went and I bought the movie and I watched it again, and I was like, oh my God, I totally get, you know, the logical connection here. But
yes.
But talking about on the same line, I think South Korea has recognized that yes, violence and over sexualized things and drug abuse, that actually can make some changes, maybe in the negative sense. But what are your thoughts on, like, do you think that film actually like affects people's psyches? And yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Can you?
I don't think there's any doubt that there is a relationship, but yeah, it can be both good and bad. You know, there's literally movies that have changed the world by you know, what they present and set in place and inspire people to do. And you know, we were talking about occupations before we started recording thing. Like, there's how many people have saw something in a movie that they grew up and there was nothing like that in their own area, and they see something and they're like, oh, I want to do that. You know, I didn't know that was an option for my life. And that, you know, that kind of leads them on a path. You know, you take even, you know, it seems like it came quick, like the acceptance of gay marriage over the past decade. But that's probably a lot of that set in motion by movies and TV of the late 90s and early 2000s.
Ellen DeGeneres.
Yeah. That's Will and Grace on TV, The Birdcage with Robin Williams. These movies that you know, present it like, oh, it's not this crazy thing that we think of, that kind of thing. And you know, but also the same way, maybe there's although the stats would go against it. I would say, you know, Tarantino, let's say, and it's funny because I would have put South Korea, not that I'm an expert on South Korean film, but I know Tarantino and a lot of directors are influenced by a lot of film, and I thought South Korea was one with
Old Boy,
violence specifically.
Old Boy.
Yeah, Old Boy, and I want to say, it wasn't The Departed based on a I thought it was a South Korean film. Maybe it was a different Asian country.
But the thing is, there's been a few movies that come out, and especially because incest has to do with that as a theme, that movie, in multiple ways. But it's like when those movies come out, people are like,
shocked.
Did that just happen? Like,
right.
Like, really, I watched it with my girlfriend, and at the time, and she was like, people were just like, they don't even know how to respond to that, you know. But really, actually, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because really recently, they won Best Film with Parasite, and also now Squid Games is #1 in Netflix of all time. And so both of those deal with themes of like the underclass and debt and things like that. So they're really pervasive themes in both movies. So watching that after living here 10 years, I'm like, whoa, I didn't know about some of that stuff, but a lot of the pressure inside a family and stuff, you totally get that. You know, it's totally a real thing. They're not like just making that element up. But
seeing how movies have played an important role in society, some may regard it as extremely important. Some may think that there's, like we were just talking about, there can be psychological problems to it at times. Things that we view, whether it's gore, murder, you know, all the crazy things that come with movies. Do you think that in the next 5 to 10 years, we can come back to a place where there is more of a valuable storyline and the quality of the last 40 years of film? Do you think that's possible in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think so, and I think it is better. As Isaiah said, like maybe it's easy to single out Whiplash or In Bruges as these great movies of the past 20 years because what else would you grab onto in the last 20 years except there's so many superhero movies. Everything is a comic book movie, and not that I don't love those movies, but it's hard when we're just inundated with half the movies coming out are going to be some type of or a comic book movie kind of thing. But we're also living in a time when, because of the streaming services, the quality level on those, HBO started years ago and it's caught up to everything that, I don't know if Game of Thrones kind of limped to the finish, but an episode of Game of Thrones when it was at its height was as good as anything that was coming out in a theater, like as far as the acting, the production, the sets, the themes, all that kind of stuff. So I think we have way more stuff coming out, but I think I think when we look back, we'll find just as much good stuff as always. And I do think inspiration counts for so much, that like we were talking, like how movies can change the world. The Americanization of the world is probably a lot from movies.
Yeah.
We Hollywood, in a movie rather than importing our culture somewhere, we import a movie somewhere and people fall in love with that, and that changes their culture too, because they want to be American or whatever we put on screen, even if it's not real.
Right.
So I think though the influence of that, because of all these streaming services and the internet and going around the world now, we will get more and more that we finally got a best foreign picture or a best picture,
right,
a foreign country this
South
year.
Korea.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's harder to see, but I think definitely the answer is yes. That things are going to only get better, and it's cheap. It's harder to market a movie. It's more expensive to market a movie than ever, but it's cheaper to make a movie. So I think you're getting a lot more independent films made, and there's a lot more places for them to be shown and stuff. So I think the future is bright for all that, as far as like the quality should definitely go up.
And actually, let me ask you something. Have you ever seen a 4D movie?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so through my company, I gave away some trips to the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, Steve, and I took them to see. I took them to see Black Panther in 4D. So they have like seats that move around. But they also, like, if they're flying, for example, they have these really powerful fans on the top of the ceiling. So it blows down. So you feel like the air, they spray water at you. Yeah. Actually, sometimes there's like a car crash. So they release some kind of like smoke smell. And so you smell like burnt rubber or something.
Like a
and
grease,
so and they don't do this the whole time, but there are certain scenes, like let's say like one scene, they went to like some, like, it might have been like maybe not the Grand Canyon, but some kind of like scenic scene, and they'll straight project to the side of the walls. So it literally will take up your whole peripheral vision. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But
that's so cool.
So I do want to ask you a question. This is not on here, the questions I sent you, but
I'm out.
Yeah. So
only prep questions.
Okay, because as much as filmmaking has gone up, it does seem, especially with the advent of like CGI, that people, filmmakers have gotten super lazy, because like, oh, we don't need to come up with creative ways. Like, we got a computer, let's just send that to the other department, So it's like, I've seen stuff and I'm like, how is it that these special effects look worse than the stuff I saw growing up as a kid? That makes no logical sense. That makes no sense whatsoever. Because, when you get down to it, it's because they had to use props. They had to come up with ingenious ways to actually do things, In fact, what's other argued as one of the greatest movies of all time, which is Citizen Kane. If you actually get into like the filmmaking skills of that guy actually employed to make that film, it's completely brilliant. Because he just one example, because of the shots, he was creating this whole other way of telling a sub story through the actual just angles and use of props. He had wanted to do this scene when they're having dinner, and they just did not have I don't know, the cranes or whatever to do it. So he actually made a table that could like open. And so when they're starting, they're having and it's like zooming in and it's coming in, and the table actually just moves and it goes into the person. So yeah, pretty ingenious stuff. So what are your thoughts on that? As far as it seems like quantity's gone up for sure, but quality in a lot of ways has gone down to the point where it's like, let's just remake a bunch of movies because we don't have anything original, creative to do. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, J-Pod, I saw you look like you had a thought on that.
You know what, it's interesting because the other night I actually watched Prometheus, which is the prequel to Alien. And I actually thought that, okay, look at the gap of how many years from the first movie to Prometheus.
Right.
I think it actually just enhances the movie better than like what Star Wars, I believe, has done in the last few years. So when I watched Prometheus, I really was like, wow, this takes me back to the original Aliens and how everything really got started.
Yeah.
And it set up, Ridley Scott did an excellent job of setting this up for another movie ahead. And again, I haven't watched that movie. I think it's Covenant.
So I haven't seen it either.
But I heard it's very good. But I when I watched Prometheus, it brought me to a place where it was like, I can really appreciate the older movies even more now. But
no, I agree there.
They were using CGI. There's no question about it. But I actually enjoyed it. So there's no question that there's terrible CGI and then there's quality CGI. So I think we have to like differentiate between the two because there is value in it. And obviously movie in general has changed, like ways to do it. So go ahead, Steve.
I 100% agree. In fact, I think that's the complete message. There's good and there's bad, and sometimes just by where we are in the timeline, we've got to go through a period of bad, right? Like you watched the first Hulk when it came out. I think Ang Lee did it. It was a great director, but it just looks bad.
It looks bad.
Like, why wouldn't we have just a live action Lou Ferrigno, big guy at this point if we're going to do it this way? But that's our stepping stone to here. I don't know if you saw, there's a great thing on The Irishman, which came out, during the pandemic, and it got a lot of flack for the bad CGI of aging these guys and making them look older in scenes or younger in other scenes.
Right.
And there's a guy who just went and fixed it. Just a guy at home. He
really?
went and fixed it. You can look it up.
Wow.
If you just put in Google, guy fixes special effects on Irishman. He fixes it. He doesn't work in the industry. He's now been hired because he's that good at it.
No way.
So it just shows you, like, even a movie where Martin Scorsese and we're well into CGI, there's still the little stuff that's one artist can't pick up. Like, no, he's not moving the right way there, or whatever, the hair doesn't look right, or you're not getting the eyes right. And at some point, because of a timeline of a movie, they're like, let's just put it out there.
Yeah.
Eventually, it gets better. Where the again, by the time the Avengers got to the last Avengers, it was fantastic, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's seamless now. So, but there are still missteps for sure.
So, Steve, who do you think, in your own personal opinion, let's go with your top 3 greatest directors of all time?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue against Spielberg. He just can find a line between making something that's special effects and also touching into a human spirit kind of thing. You know what I mean? You at one point think of special effects with him, and you think of kids and dogs and life and family. So those two, to meld those things is pretty impressive to do that. I'll watch anything that Quentin Tarantino does. He's to me far and above anyone else. As far as I've watched all these films, the one X factor that comes in a lot of films is tone. You know what I mean? Sometimes there's a great script, there's great acting, there's a great story, and it still just doesn't work. And it's hard to grab why it doesn't work. And tone a lot of times is that Tarantino always gets the tone right. I'm not saying everything he does is golden, but what he's attempting usually hits the spot of where he's going. Whereas other directors of that same timeline, like a Guy Ritchie or a Spike Lee or people that around the same time, they have some off ones where you're like, ooh, you don't seem to know what your wheelhouse is there or whatever. So I'd say him. And I apologize because I'm gonna mess. I don't know his name, but the guy who did Whiplash, and he also did La La Land and First Man, which is about Neil Armstrong moon. That guy, I don't want to go off onto the internet here, but he's a guy I'll go see whatever he makes that comes out, and that makes me a bad moviegoer that I don't know his name right off the top of my head. But he's the guy who famously, when they mentioned the wrong movie on the Oscars for Best Picture, he was the one who's like, no, we didn't win, it wasn't us, and then he hands it over to
Damien Chazelle.
Damien Chazelle, that's it.
Yeah, I don't know, but I've already said that one movie. But I'm a bit slanted toward South Korea. So actually Park Chan-wook is one of my, he's probably number 2. But personally, I just love everything that Chris Nolan has touched. Like his movies are just on a different level to me. So anyway, I do want to transition here. If you could, because I know you do comedy. So if you
David Fincher obviously up there too with Nolan as those guys like now that they're so great.
But if you can tell me, why do you think comedy is so important in our lives?
Yeah, I think it's we touched on it before about I think we were recording when we talked about it being medicine, and you have firsthand experience of what it's meant to your life when we're all down. I don't think it cures anything, but it's a reset button. It gets you out of whatever you're in, at least for a little bit. Movies are like that, but they're they can take an hour or 2 hours, that kind of thing. Whether it be watching a stand-up comedian or laughing with your friends or family, you can't worry or stress or whatever when you're laughing. All that stuff. So whatever problem you have is still there the minute you're done laughing. But you're probably looking at it a different way, and it takes the piss out of it. I'll give you an example. This is going to sound it's a little confessional. My dad was an alcoholic. He was a very functioning alcoholic. He didn't beat us kids. He wasn't mean. He was a happy drunk, but he was an alcoholic for sure. And he would come home nights and he would be drunk. And as I was a little kid, my brother and sister are a little older, and he would be fall down drunk. And it was sad. It's sad to think about it now that he was in this shape and that it was ruining his life. But we laughed about it. Like, we laughed, and I have joked about it now, about that kind of thing. And that's how we took the power away from it. And rather than cry and be like, oh, what the fuck, I'm seeing my dad in this shape. Yeah, that's what I think the power of it is. It takes the piss out of stuff, and it allows you to look at it in a different way, which is invaluable, I think.
I was wondering if you could give me any thoughts on the Chappelle controversy that's recently happened, and also if you can tell me if you think that comedians get a free pass, or should they get a free pass? If you have any thoughts on that, especially in like cancel culture.
Yeah. I think
hold on. Just some quick context. Some people have actually like got fired over that Chappelle thing, and some people have. I think they recently had like a strike or something. They had to walk out.
Some employees at Netflix who are either support transgender roles, or or they're transgender themselves, have walked out.
Right. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the special. I laughed. I think he's one of the best comedians of all time. I would never. My rule is to never take a comedian seriously. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying he doesn't think those things, but I would say, who cares what Dave Chappelle thinks?
Right.
Like, he's not a politician. If he's the guy making laws, if he's the guy arresting people, if he's the guy closing down a transgender, dance club or hotel, or not giving people a place to live, then yes, then it's a problem. But if he's a comedian making jokes, I never take anyone making a joke seriously, and 100% if they're a comedian. Now, listen, if someone's at work and they're telling a joke, maybe I'm not saying to take that seriously. Someone's attempting a joke, so I would not take them seriously, but I understand if they're telling an off-color joke at work, how that might upset someone in the workplace or something. Right. But if you're a stand-up comedian, yes, that's your job, is to be funny. I would never take that. I don't care. It's the job of it's not the job of a comedian, but we give them the rope. Like Louis C.K. literally, before he got canceled, and you can argue rightfully or so or whatever, he was just taking taboos, whatever you would say. Oh, you can't make fun of the troops. Oh yeah, I'll make fun of the troops. It's the power of laughter. And it makes you look at things from different sides, and there's value in that. And again, it doesn't affect a real thing. A rape joke is not rape. A racial joke is not racist. It's a thing. It's a left, and it can be left after that. You can argue, oh, but then do people? Yeah, but those people are idiots anyways, and we shouldn't steer. It's the same thing we were talking about with movies. If you see violence in movies, does that make people violent? Like, it's the people who are going to be violent, we're probably going to be violent anyways. Yes, there's some people who will be inspired by it, but we can't steer our society by those people. So, yeah, they get a free pass? Yeah, and they probably should.
J-Pod?
Yeah, I would just like to add to that. It's like no different. Like, I wouldn't bring my 5-year-old to a Dave Chappelle show.
Right. Yeah.
Because I bought the tickets, I know what I'm going to. I know what I'm going to expect. Now, I may not know, I'm not going to know the jokes that he's going to tell, but through consistency of who the man is and what he has said, then I have maybe like a little bit of prophetic knowledge that he's going to say some off the wall stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's okay, because that's why I bought the tickets in the first place.
Exactly. That's what you signed up for.
Exactly. So as far as like somebody getting upset because they didn't like what he said or how they said it, everything is about context. And I think what they did, from my perspective, is they took what he said out of context. Because when you focus on the one, like a word, then the word becomes everything that he said before and after, as opposed to what did he actually say through the whole thing. Now, I will tell you, I haven't watched the whole thing. I watched clips of it.
Yeah.
And I particularly didn't have any issues of what he said.
Right.
Now, was it wild? Oh yeah, it was. Yeah. But it was hilarious because he's making a joke about people and involving himself in the joke. Right. And I think that's generally what comedians do, because you are talking to an audience, as you're involving them into your life. Yeah. And I think that's what they are supposed to do, what comedians are supposed to do. Right.
Right. It's this idea. I hear people, ascribing it the words of one thought opinion, that there's only one thought that we're all supposed to have, and if someone's not on that thought, that they're wrong or whatever. And again, that's the basis of humor. It's the watching a person fall down from afar and you know that he's okay. It makes you laugh. It's not. Sure. We're not saying that I want to knock someone over, but I'm just saying that's funny in that moment. And sure. It's the same thing. So part of what's funny sometimes is the ignorance we have about these issues that are unfolding before us, and it's okay to laugh at those the same way, to take the piss out of it, and maybe some understanding comes out of it all.
Sure. I have young children, And, you know, literally today we got, you know, a piece of mail, and regardless of what everybody may think or what I think, is that, you know, they want a 5-year-old to wear a mask, and not to, you know, put it on like, you know, Corona isn't real. And I'm not even really talking about that necessarily.
Right.
It's just that the narrative is like, this is what we have to do.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what's happening in comedy. The narrative is, you're not speaking our language. And if you don't speak our language the way that we want you to, then you can't do it.
Right.
And I think that's a problem. I don't think that's real life.
Right. Yeah. We're not lemmings. We're not all gonna head the same direction. And again, that's where these things happen. You will have conversations. Dave Chappelle, in some ways, has sparked more, you know, whether not in some ways, in every way, has got people talking more about transgender rights than anyone in history because of this thing. You know, we'll look back on it. You can say, oh, well, yeah, he wasn't supporting us the way we wanted him to, or whatever. He got people talking about it, and it's gonna progress the quality of their lives better for them. The same way, like you said, we don't all have to agree on everything.
Right.
It's when it gets, you know, that crazy so far where people are like, oh, you don't agree with me, die. Like, you know, these people need to go away. Like, what are you talking about? No one's going away. That's the cancel thing. Like, oh, if you you know, don't agree with us, well, you can't have your job anymore. Well, no, that person's got to work. They have to do that. Like, there's no island that we're just going to put everyone who we disagree with on.
There is. It's called Australia. That's what the Brits did.
And they're thriving. They're doing well.
Yeah.
Sport your London hat. There you go.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Booted them out.
Steve, I was wondering, I know you're only a comedian, but I was wondering if you could tell me what the meaning of life is.
You mean only a comedian? What does that mean? That's like very dismissive, like just a comedian.
Well, can I trust a comedian to tell me what the meaning of life is? That's a deep question.
No, I have no idea. I think it's something we all search for, and every time you think you might have any inkling of an answer, probably 2 days later you're like, oh no, yeah,
wasn't it.
I mean, I don't know. I kind of like the mystery. I kind of like not knowing. I don't. There's things that I value, of course, you know, family, friends, you know, happiness, that kind of thing. I probably, in my mindset, I used to have a joke where I was like, I'm not a religious person. You know, those people who are like, I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual. Mm-hmm. I'm not even that. I don't do that. I don't go to church. I don't eat at church's fried chicken, nothing. Like, there's none of this. The closest to my own mindset about anything like that would be, and it's not this, but in the vein of kind of a hedonistic thing. I'm not like, do whatever you want, screw anyone else's feeling, not that kind of thing, but like, we're only here for one life. Generally, if you find the things that make you happy and make others happy, it's going to be for a better life. That's my thoughts on life, but I don't know that's what we were put here for, or if we were put here in the first place, or any of that kind of stuff. I have no guess on that.
The last time we talked, you had mentioned that you said you suspect that was an interesting word choice. You said you suspect that there's something out there. And do you consider yourself more of a deist, or do you believe that whatever that transcendence is out there, that maybe just with our own where we are in this like reality, that we're never
there's just been like I was saying, I like about talking about the mystery of it. I don't think there's an old white man in the in the heavens who started everything.
He could be Korean.
Or Korean, Jesus. or any of that kind of stuff. Or but I don't subscribe to any of that stuff. I've never seen anything that anyone put on paper or in a thing that is like, oh, maybe that's how it is, that kind of thing. But there's been some strange times in my life, or things that are very unexplainable in a randomness sort of way, where things happen and you're like, well, that seems like way more than just a coincidence. That happened that way, that things point to an order, or you know, not it happened for a reason or that kind of thing, but just more of a, hey, with the way I'm thinking that it's just completely random and these things happen every once in a while, that pushes me back the other way, that thinks, well, there's something there that I can't explain. So
is this just kind of like an intuition? Would you describe it? Maybe,
yeah.
Hey, I got one for you. This story has no relevance at all, but it's probably the most, I don't think you could think of a bigger coincidence than this.
Okay.
Honestly, because I was in South Korea and I was going to go meet my girlfriend, and I ride on my motorcycle, and I have about 15 minutes to kill. And so I'm starting to think, well, I'm going to stop in at this movie theater because Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, was just getting released. And so I go in there just to see if I could see what time it's playing. And there's a bunch of people there, Steve. And within about 5 minutes of me arriving to that movie theater, the entire cast came out because they were doing some kind of publicity tour or whatever. So wow. It was just, I just happened to be the exact location, like the exact time that everybody was there. It was like, I can't even think of something that'd be that's like 1 in a billion, maybe a couple of billion.
Right, that you stumble on that place. Yeah.
But prior to that, prior to becoming a Christian myself, I did experience a few of those things, and I did like suppress it. I did suppress it for a long time. I even had a couple of instances where I experienced like a divine miracle, like right in front of me. And I forced myself to forget it because I did wanted to pursue the hedonistic side with women, with wine and song. Right. And I mean, that's why I was like in South Korea in the first place. But it's just curious. I mean, I'm just, do you think that that's, if you suspect that something's out there, do you not think that that thing wants to communicate in some way or another? Like, otherwise, what's the purpose of putting us here? Maybe just for like a science project, or I'm genuinely curious.
I know exactly what you're saying. But it's one of those. It's the crazy thing. So I always thought about religion, like religion sometimes gives you the answers, so you stop asking the questions. Like, I think the more times I start out those questions, it just leads to more questions. You know what I mean? Like, again, if there was something that greater than us, you know, that wants me to live not hedonistically. And again, like I said, that's why even throwing that word out seems to, you know what I mean? Like, I'm married, I'm faithful, I don't cheat on my wife, I don't ever do anything to choose my feeling good when someone else gets hurt, you know, which is more of a pure hedonistic thing. I'm just saying like a choosing happiness kind of thing. But you know, every time you get too far into that, like, oh, there is something that it's more than just a science experiment you start asking the questions about like all the terrible things that happen in the world, right? Like the cancer and you know, child endangerment and all that kind of stuff that you're like, well, then this doesn't answer that. Like, do I want to be faithful to something that would set that in motion and that kind of thing? Right. So that's what I'm saying. And you know, it's more conundrums on top of each other every time you think about that stuff.
So part of your story was that you faced death you faced death head on. And does that make you stop and pause and say like, what is my life? I know you did it for the comedy, and I think the comedy aspect is beautiful, but as far as wondering, does that make you think, like, I can just imagine, like, I remember whenever I was telling about my sickness, whenever I almost died, that really made me stop and evaluate things in a totally different way, you know? So yeah, do you have any final thoughts on that? We only got a couple more minutes.
Yeah. I think, again, no matter what, again, like I said, I can kind of enjoy the mystery of not knowing. So, but the one thing I do know is that, there's a limited time here. And so it changes your perspective on that, you know, getting stage 4 cancer diagnosis and being told I'm only have 5 years to live. That makes you know, think, well, all right, whatever it is, time I've spent here, whether it means anything or it doesn't mean anything, I only have so much of it left.
Right.
Even if I'm lucky to get more, which I've been lucky to have a lot more than I expected. You want to make that count, not for something else, but for yourself and for the people that you love. You know what I mean? You want that to be more valuable. So I mean, there's a, you know, I guess, I guess, what would that be called? I don't know.
No, that's interesting. That's
humanness or something. You know what I mean? You want those connections for sure.
That's a very interesting perspective.
Rather than something above, it's here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you would need that perspective. If you read Tuesdays with Morris, which is one of my favorite.
I read that. Yeah.
Top 10 movie, top 10 books of all time. He says that in there, that everybody knows that they're going to die, but most people don't really live the way that this opportunity, not just I'm going to die, but my child's going to die one day. My mom's going to die one day. My friend's going to die one day. So if you genuinely live that out daily, I think most people would live drastically different if you're really taking that into consideration.
If it could sink in, sure.
J-Pod, you got any last thoughts?
Yeah, I actually have a couple. I want to talk about what Steve just said about hedonism. I am a Christian. There's a pastor that I listen to. His name's John Piper. And he actually talks about Christian hedonism. So that's kind of his thing.
Yeah.
And
wow, I never heard that.
So he takes what a Christian is and then what hedonism is, and he blends them together. So the desires of God I can enjoy fully unto him, not unto just myself. Is that because I was created him? I believe that we are all created in God's image. Is that now I have that relationship. I don't necessarily say it's my religion. I have a relationship with God through Christ, and through that I can actually enjoy the desires that he has for me and live fully unto
That's
him.
totally.
And then there's one other thing that I would like Steve to engage is I created my own joke. And I don't know if you're a father or not, but I don't know if this is considered a dad joke, but I would like your thoughts about how far this can go as far as jokes.
Okay, let's hear it.
What kind of soup does a turtle eat when he has vertigo?
Turtle soup?
I don't know.
Turtellini soup.
Oh God, get the heck off of this podcast. Come on. All right. Actually, he gave you a sympathy. Steve is actually genuinely really smart. He's going to do a quick little set here, but I do want to say this: the word hedonism, actually, the way that most people define it is not actually like a way that most philosophers would actually define it, because people tend to think about hedonism. Like, I would consider myself just a hardcore hedonist before it was just drugs, women, alcohol, partying. I was telling people I would literally go to work Friday morning and get home Sunday night. That was like my consistent weekends here in South Korea. And but everybody is a hedonist in a sense, because like when you're hungry, you eat. So being full would be like the pleasure, and so like being warm, for example, would be like the feeling of, as opposed to being cold. So everybody is a hedonist in that sense. The Christian idea of hedonism is, because like before, whenever I had like sexual addictions and had a prostitution addiction at one stage of my life that took me to some very low places, that felt like hedonism at the time, but I didn't realize the kind of damage I was doing to myself. And now, not having those kind of addictions and that kind of lack of self-control, that's actually a pleasurable experience for me. The fact that I have a daughter and a wife now that I can take care of, that is more pleasurable than the the instant gratification that I was having before. But that being said, Steve, we want to end off with something funny here. So you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. I think as a comedian, you're always ready at the drop of a hat to drop a few jokes. So,
I don't know about that.
You can go a few minutes. Adam had a really good time last time. He was so happy that we got to interview you. So he thought your jokes are hilarious.
Oh, good. Well, thanks to both you and Jay Potted. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, it was fun talking. I love nuanced conversations.
Sure.
So yeah.
So here we go.
As you mentioned, things are opening back up. So I am doing more comedy. I'm out on the road, and I end up staying as a comedian. I stay at a lot of hotels. And I stayed at a place last week. When I checked in, they gave me a key, not a key card, a key, an actual key. I was like, oh my God, did I just win a car? Did I win a car? They're like, no, that's kick out. I was like, oh, okay. I'll be honest though, like any place giving you a key in this day and age is basically saying welcome. We haven't renovated in 40 years. Enjoy your stay and the typewriter in our business center, right? Like it's not helpful. I'll be honest though, I like the key always works, right?
Yeah, it does.
The key always works. You never go up 10 flights of stairs with a key. No. Right? It always works. It's just perfect. The key card never works. And there you go up, it doesn't work. You swipe it, it gets red, not working. You don't know if you're doing it the right way. You go back down. They're never apologetic. They blame you. Like it's your fault. They like stare. Oh, it's not working. Did you put it next to something? Like a magnet. Like a magnet. What the hell? Who do I look like? Wile E. Coyote? Where would I have found a magnet? Between here and the 10th floor. No, it was in my pocket. It was in my wallet. Oh, you can't put it in your wallet. Yeah, you can't put it near other credit cards and stuff like that. Oh, well, really? You should put a note on here that says this does not play well with other things that look exactly like it, right? Like, well, what can I do? Well, I'll recharge it and I'll give it back to you, and just hold it away from your head, away from everything in the universe. And you got to walk up the stairs. You're like, well, yeah. How do I get it upstairs if I can't put it near anything? It's just it's awful. Okay. We were talking about movies though, and I want to be fair to the comic book movies, because I was coming down hard on the comic book movies, saying that we may have too many. I love them. That's actually one of the things I accomplished during the pandemic. Some people did something productive. They learned a language, a new skill, something like that. I watched every Marvel superhero movie in the order you're supposed to watch them. There's a specific order, and I completed that. That's the only thing I completed. And then I watched the DC ones as well. That's the only real accomplishment I did for the pandemic. But I'll tell you this, I noticed this in watching that many of them. These superhero movies are sexist. They're very sexist. Here's what I noticed. If you're a man in the superhero movies, you are allowed to get old. You are allowed to get old. Robert Downey played Iron Man, Tony Stark, for about 8 movies over a period of about 15 or 16 years. He got old enough into his 50s. He actually dies in one of the in the movie. Spoiler alert. Hugh Jackman plays Wolverine for 6 or 7 movies over a period of about 15, 20 years, into his 50s, and dies in the movies. That's how old he gets. If you're a woman in a superhero movie and you turn 30 years old, they will recast you with someone in high school. That is not good. You don't. Turning 30 for a woman is dying in a superhero movie. That's it isn't kryptonite, or their weak spot is turning 29 or 30. It's their 30s. That's unfair. I think we need an older woman superhero. I think we need a middle-aged woman superhero. I think we need a menopausal superhero. We need a menopausal superhero, and I think her name should be the Hot Flash. The Hot Flash, and her superpower is, if she hears you make that joke, she kicks your ass, because that's not funny. All right, that's not funny. She's going through some things. Why don't you try some empathy instead of being funny all the time? All right. Why don't you be nice? And she doesn't wear a cape. She doesn't have a cape. Hot Flash doesn't have a cape. She's got a blanket. And she's like, I'm cold. I'm hot. I'm cold. I'm hot. All right,
oh, God.
That's all I got for you.
That's good. That's good. All right. Well, God. Oh, that first one got me going. Actually, the first time you said, I thought the funniest thing the first time you said is they gave me the key and the key had the number on it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And it happened to be the place where I put all my stuff at. I'm glad
that's the other problem, right? Exactly. I forgot that. With the key, they put the number on there. So that way, if you lose the
somebody
key,
finds it.
Whoever finds it. Yeah, it's unfair.
So, yeah. So, J-Pod, you got any last thoughts? We'll wrap this up.
You know, I just want to say I appreciate you both. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor, and you know, hope I can jump back on next time. And feel free to contact us, and let's make it happen again. It was really enjoyable, and I really
it was fun for me. Yeah, thanks for having me on, both of you.
You got any last thoughts, Steve?
I got no thoughts. I've left them all on the table. Just thanks to both you and the people listening. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, chiming in. I would love to see people out at shows, and I would love to be back talking with you guys. Like I said, I love nothing more fun than this, than just having some deeper conversations with people.
And your website is stevemazan.com or Mazan?
Yeah, stevemazan.com, M-A-Z-A-N, and the name of my podcast is the Mazan Movie Club.
Yeah, we'll put your links in there again. And if you could tell us, like, you got any shows coming up here?
I mean, my calendar's always kind of changing. I'll definitely be out on the road. You can say at stevemazan.com, you can see my calendar. I'm out doing a few clubs in the next couple of weeks. I'm in Reno coming soon. Right. I'm out on a cruise ship doing some work. So
wow,
a little bit everywhere, just depending on when people are listening to this. But yeah, and follow me on Facebook and Instagram. I tell people like more week to week where I am kind of.
Are you on Twitter?
Yep. Yeah, okay. Same thing at Steve Mazan.
Yep. We'll put all those on there. Yeah, so thank you. Last thoughts for me. I went through a pretty bad depression. Well, I told you earlier, whenever I was around 16 years old, I went through a severe depression to the point where I would cover out all the windows and lights in my room, so you couldn't even see your hand in front of your face. And at that stage of my life, music actually helped me out. It helped me to overcome that depression. And as an adult, I've also suffered from depression as well, but it has been comedy that's helped me. And movies, I think just the immersive process. I'd prefer a book, honestly, because it takes away, the movies do take away. The movies do take away from your own personal creativity, but you get to see into the mind of someone else, how this person would have done that. And maybe that would have been done 100%. By a certain person, because we all have different experiences. And I think that's just the beauty of humanity, that we all have our own unique sentient experience on this planet. And for me, the more we can just sit down, have conversations, even if we have two Christians here, but we heard you out and, agree to disagree on some stuff. And we actually have had a Jew and a Muslim on this podcast, and we had some really great talks. So I think that's what we need. And I think you certainly do doing your service. I know you serve the country in the military, but I believe that you're serving the world in the comedy. So
that's such a nice thing to say. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's completely for ratings, so don't get too carried away. I had to throw out a joke there. Okay, so I just want to tell you one last thing before we let you go. We are supporting 3 different causes here, so just want to give you a choice to pick from these 3. We make some small donations, but one of them is the anti-bullying campaign for the LGBT plus community. I myself may be against that lifestyle myself, but I am never going to go along with supporting bullying or racist or transphobic or whatever. But I can agree to disagree and say I still love you as a person, and so that's something that we support there. We are also supporting a North Korean refugee organization that I'm working with here as well. And then there's one more, which is a Palestinian peace organization that works with reformed terrorists who I've actually gotten to go into their home in Palestine with the family of slain soldiers. I've slain like civilians. Their parents were like working together with these people. So we have those three causes. Which one interests you the most?
I mean, I like them all, but just because you're in South Korea, I think that's the one to go with. Just because, I like that the seldom chance to get to be part of something like that here in America. So
I actually went to North Korea a couple of times as an atheist, and that experience really caused me to rethink my atheism at the time. And I didn't become a Christian until many years later, but yeah. And then we're going to send you out a Starbucks card, so you're out on the road. You can fill up a little bit of energy like we did last time. And yeah, thank you so much. And with that being said, we want to thank you for joining us today at RHE Podcast. Be sure to subscribe if you're not already, and leave us a comment below. Tell us what you thought about Steve. I think he's a great guy. Really appreciate you coming back again. But yeah, look us up: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, almost anywhere you can find us online. Anywhere you can find us. So yeah, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you back again. Goodbye.